Hey everybody, Scoots here, and if you've been listening to Sleep With Me for longer than a year, you probably know me pretty well. You probably develop preferences about the show, favorites, maybe you build your own playlist in your podcast app, maybe you've kind of, I'm a part of your life. I'm a part of your routine, and I'm hoping if you've been listening over a year, this is the time you're listening to me and hearing me right now, and you're not changing your mind about supporting the show, but realizing, hey, I haven't listened. Holy cow, how have I not supported this podcast? How have I not at least tested out Sleep With Me Plus? Because it's built with long-term listeners in mind. If you've never supported the show or you stopped and you're thinking about coming back, maybe like Timothy said, Scoots, I'm a full-time caregiver and, person I care for, and I discovered the podcast, and we love listening to the ad-free content. Or John that said, I see and feel how much you love doing this podcast as your vocation. I'm going to help do my part to keep that a reality. So can you take part in this too? Now, if you decided you're not going to support the show or you're not in a position, you could still root with me. This is like the closest thing to Sleep With Me sports. We're rooting that there is someone listening. Maybe it's you. Maybe can you feel all those other listeners rooting for you? Or are you doing the rooting and saying, yeah, I've been listening 4 years. I've been listening 2 years. It is time for me to support the show. Well, we're rooting for you, and I hope you're hearing me. I hope you're listening. And if you're not the person I'm talking to, I hope you're rooting with me that person is hearing me. Because we really could use your support. And you could do that at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. And here's the thing. There's a 7-day trial, so you could cancel after 6 days if it doesn't meet your expectations. But if you've been listening over a year, I need you to either root for that person, or maybe you are that person that's going to support the show right now at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Thanks. Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for the podcaster who's here. I'm trying to get comfortable, like, in my chair here, and I thought of, like, there's a poem about a crooked man who lives in a crooked house or something on a crooked lane. I don't know why that popped in my head, just because even though I'm in the climbing closet, which I can touch both walls with my elbows, it's so small in here where I record, under the stairs, which I've recently been slowly putting back together, even though that fact is a fact, for some reason the chair is all the way to the left side, and I don't understand why, other than that's just like my nature with everything. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. It's time for Sleep With Me. Oh, if you're new, though, sorry, I go on these tangents. Welcome to Sleep With Me. It's a podcast that's here to put you to sleep by keeping you company while you fall asleep and taking your mind off of stuff. It is a very different show, so it does take some getting used to. So give it a few tries. It's free. And I'm here to try to help, but most regular listeners said, hey, it took me 2 or 3 tries to get used to the show and realize you're only here to be kind of barely listened to. But I'm here because you deserve a good night's sleep, and I know how it feels in the deep, dark night, and that is important to me, and I know it's important to you to get the rest you need so your life is more manageable, and you could be out there in the world flourishing. So thank you for listening. Structurally, there's support. That's how the show's free. Then there's a long, meandering intro. So if you decide to skip the support or something, don't miss out on the intro. It's really meant to ease you into bedtime and get to know the show. And then there'll be support, and then a coverage of an episode of The Mandalorian, actually the final episode of season 3, 8/16/24, so chapter 24, I believe. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. I appreciate you checking the podcast out, and thanks again for coming by. And these sponsors are how I'm able to do it for you for free twice a week. Hey, everybody, it's Scoots here, and I know you might be getting ready you're getting in bed, you're getting comfortable. If you fall asleep fast, it's critical you listen. If you fall asleep fast, this show's kind of designed to put people to sleep over a 20 or 30-minute period, but that's great. You're an exception to the rule. You fall asleep fast. That is awesome. But we need people who fall asleep fast to support the show. There's just no other way for us to pay the bills. And I don't know if you're the one I'm trying to get through to that's listening to me, that's hearing me right now for the first time, you're making that connection. Holy cow, I fall asleep in 5 minutes. I never thought about what it takes to make this show. I never thought about that it needs my support. Or maybe you're one of the people rooting for that person. Man, I hope that person's out there that's going to support the show because it makes my life better. I just can't support the show. But I know there's someone out there who is. Like Tiffany Y, who said, just because you could get something for free doesn't mean you should. I know if I have trouble sleeping, I just have to listen. I'll be out in no time. That's definitely worth a few dollars a month. I'm pretty sure if you try it out and you fall asleep fast, you're going to have a great experience. And you could do that at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. But like I said, if you're not in a place to support the show right now, you've decided you're not going to support the show, then root with me. Is that fall asleep fast listener listening and hearing me right now? We just happen to catch you and we're rooting for you. Root for them together because we need your support. Are you hearing us cheer for you and you say, wait, no, that is me. That is me. Just like Tiffany. I had no idea. Of course I want to support the show. It's changed my life so much for the better. So if you're that person, you'll be the hero, the heroine, the champion we're looking for, that we're rooting for, because you're not alone. We're all rooting for one another together here in the deep dark night. Thanks. All right, everybody, this is Scoots here. I'm going to turn things over to someone who hasn't been on the show in a while because their company did not reserve time on the show, but they finally realized that this would be a perfect thing. It was weird because I didn't realize they had a whole seminar on this. And so I'm going to turn things over to Brad Braderson from the Boredom Institute. Take it away, Brad. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brad Braderson. I'm here and welcome. Thank you, Scooter, and welcome in. Have a seat. We're here at, an unnamed conference room somewhere on the road in a hotel within your mind. And I'm glad to have you all here. You may remember me from such seminars as Bored to Win and other seminars I don't recall, where we've used boredom to help you with health, wealth, and happiness. The 4 triangles of using boredom to create a triangle. And tonight we're going to talk about the unintended compliment. And now, originally this was intended to be a store, one of these, we don't normally do these. Usually, we do 10 ways to win, 10 ways to bored to win, 10 ways to use boredom to, help you with health, those things. I think we did one about stepping stones. And I'm not sure. I'm just glad to be here again, talking to you listeners asleep with me. And tonight we're going to be talking about the unintended compliment. And we're going to be talking about just one aspect of unintended compliments, but how to use them. But the key to using an unintended compliment is not to use it, because then it would be intentional, but to live your life in a way through boredom, through the powers of boredom, to be giving out unintended compliments. And you say, Brad, could you tell us more about this? Because it's confusing, which is perfect for this seminar in this situation. What do you mean by unintended compliment? Well, there's sometimes, there's a couple degrees of, I don't know, if I don't have all the examples of unintended compliments, but these are the compliments we're not exactly talking about tonight, but maybe we are, and maybe I'll try to analyze it. You may say, like, one example of an unintended compliment might be that someone takes it as a compliment, even though you didn't intend it as a compliment. So let's just say 2 people are standing somewhere, and they maybe are having a polite, general conversation. They don't know one another. And the person who is speaking now says, you know what I really love is coral shirts. Coral shirts, they say. Now, the person they're talking to just happens to be wearing a shirt that they believe is the color coral, and that they maybe already felt good about, or maybe they weren't sure how to feel about it. And then they say, this person loves coral shirts. And they must be complimenting indirect. They think it's an indirect compliment, while it's an unintended compliment. Like an intended compliment might be like, "Oh, I like your coral shirt," an intentional compliment. And we're trying to move with boredom beyond the stages of intention of complimenting others for health, wealth, and happiness. Now, in this situation that we're bringing up, the person didn't intend to compliment the other person, but the person did take it as a compliment, and they felt good. And maybe they said, "I do too," or maybe they said, "Thank you," and it caused, some consternation. And so you say, "Brad, I'm even more confused now. Why are you giving it? What is the purpose of this?" By the end of this seminar, ideally, you'll be resting well, but you'll also realize the power of boredom and may be able to empower you to use compliments unintentionally. Because this would be a seminar where you say, "Brad, are you being intentionally vague because you have this was a free seminar." We said, "Hey, show up here at this conference room at the Gojo or whatever, and you can, it's a free seminar on using boredom and compliments." But you say, "Oh, yes, but for $29.95, that's $2,995. You can join our Bored to Win thought group." And I said, "Well, that sounds more like an unintentionally great idea." So, but no, I'm not being vague. I'm being vague because I know the power of boredom. And the power of boredom to make things vague is one of the powers of boredom. But maybe this seminar was something that Scooter had originally said he was going to tell a story. It was going to be a story seminar. And then he said, "Brad, I think you'll do just fine." So, because I'm not Scooter, I can't do once upon a time. This is an untold tale of a man. Wait a second. This is just funny because it feels like it was just yesterday that Scooter and I were walking, and Scooter wasn't listening. I was just a vague voice in the back of Scooter's mind because he had his mind on other things. And but he also said to me, "Brad, make sure to give more than one example of an unintended compliment that you're not talking about." And I said, "Well, okay, so that would be one." Another unintended compliment might be, well, I can't think of any other ones right off the top of my head, Scooter, that aren't the same as that example. You're saying something, but you're not intending it as a compliment without some sort of other meaning. Like an unintended compliment by definition is just unintended. There is an intention behind it. So you could, I think what some people are thinking of maybe like Scooter's Nana says, "Wow, Scooter, this porridge is delicious." That's more of a de-intended compliment. Or you may say, whose porridge is delicious while she's eating Scooter's porridge is that imaginary porridge that I've never had, but I'd love to have that the girl and her friends were eating, in the place with all the beds and the broken chairs. That is some delicious porridge. That's a re-intended compliment. So though I don't know if those are the same. What we're talking about is living a life through boredom, of course, where you are so full of gratitude and observations that they're basically spilling out. Now, this is, again, just what we're striving for, not an expected behavior or no pressure to behave this way. We're on a journey, and this is just a destination we're pining for, we're striving for, is where gratitude gets to the point where it's pouring out of your pores, or oozing out of your pores, or seeping out of them, and then you're saying things. And while your intention is not to compliment, because that's where it gets tricky. What's the intention? Well, let's take an example. Once upon a time, we had Stir. And Stir was someone who was direct, authoritative. They could be loyal and energetic, earthy but protective and confident. But they could also be a little bit, on the pushy side and only thinking of themselves. They could be skeptical. They might not be attuned to other people's sensitivities. They could, they could be, want to be running the show or driving the car, but also rebelling at the same time. And Stir's, is one of those people that hasn't unlocked boredom to unlock the doors of these unintended compliments. But as we start to walk the world with Stirs, and if we really dug down, now let's just say we went through, before we walked, let's just say we're walking through the world of where there's ticking clocks or watches on a rope, and we're saying Stirs countdown, and tell us what you really need. What are some of the things you really need deep down? And maybe we could find a way to use unintended compliments to get them for you. And Stir said, okay, I'm glad you asked, because they're in that voice, because they're in a state associated with a hypnotic state. And they say, okay, well, I need directness. I don't do well with analogies like you're saying. I need something direct. I need clear communication. I need to know that I could trust you, and what I tell you is between the two of us. Even if it's something you might think is inane, just say, hey, do you mind, check with me first directly. And maybe I need to see some tenderness and then help to see my own, that I can't see it for myself. Now, I may need some time alone. It's just maybe how I process things, or sometimes that's what I need. I'd like to be acknowledged, of course, but again, acknowledged for real, not any kind of, I don't know, maybe I need some intentional compliments, not to throw everything off track. And, I don't know how to do this, and I don't know how to ask for help, even though I'm totally in a state where I'm open, but this is so baffling. Sometimes my communication style is not, it can be I can, even though I want to be communicated with directly, I can communicate directly sometimes. And it could come across a bit too direct. And I think that people, they've let me know that they could see that, as me being critical of them, but I don't, that's not my intention. I'm just trying to be direct. And sometimes, and I can do this when I'm alone, I do need to, scold my pillow, as they say, and say, well, I'm just very not happy right now. And, sometimes I want somebody to not to be my parent in a sense, but to say, hey, Stirs is doing the best job they can. And, but they're also making progress. But I'm here to say they still have value, even though because I know I'm imperfect. So that is what I'm needing. Okay, Stirs, can you give me some more examples of what makes it difficult to be you? And, okay, well, can you tell me more about when you communicate directly? I think can you give me any attempts to give me an example of how some sort of unintended thing happened? Because it sounds like we're in this unintentional communication zone. Oh, thanks, Brad. Okay, so, I'm trying to think, well, let's just say, so an example would be, I'm trying to be intentionally direct with someone in my life, in a relationship, whether it's a personal relationship or a professional relationship. Now, let's just say they're playing that game, trying to think of a popular game that I like, but I'm not good at thinking of that, but to use it as an example. What about a popular game that was popular a little while ago, be like Among Us or, okay, I don't know what that is, but let's just say we'll say that, we'll say AU, the game AU. Now, let's just say someone in my life is into that, whether it's at work or home or just, out in my daily thing. But there's some sort of stakes to it, right? If it's work related, maybe they have to play the game for a project or, or at home. And I observe the fact that their success at the game is not, they haven't been successful at the game. And honestly, if I'm being clear, paying attention, I'm watching them, they're not advancing or they've reached a stasis point. But they have some investment in the game, maybe an emotional investment. Maybe they don't like the game. But I don't realize any of that. And I just say to them, you're not good at and maybe I try to soften it by saying, hey, I noticed you're playing AU for our work project or for your personal enjoyment, or I don't know why. And maybe I even say that, I don't even know why you're playing that. You're not very good at it. In fact, you're not really good at it at all. And actually, you're not even getting better at it. So maybe we move you to this, or maybe why don't you just stop playing that game? I don't understand why you're playing it. You're not good at it. And so can you help me with that, Brad? Oh boy, I'm just here. Okay, so yeah, let's try to use boredom and unintended compliments. So that's unintended. I guess you're kind of framing it. Okay, Brad, I think we're entering into a chicken or the egg situation here, because you sound like you did reveal some other situations here. So you're you're a part of something, and this game is a part of something, and it's not the only thing. And they're not getting better at the game. So in some sense, you're operating from a place of you're actually right, and maybe your blunt behavior is coming out of that, right? In that, but you are not taking into account their feelings, but you're also, there's another element there where I think you're not giving boredom a place to flourish the unintended compliments. And so what seems to be happening is that you are in a bit of a, you feel a little bit impatient because you want this resolved, and they haven't realized what you've realized. And it maybe in some sense, there is the problem almost is the truth in this situation, Stirs, because you're saying, they're but you're only seeing part of the thing too. You're saying, hey, you're not going to get any better at this game. Why don't you just stop? And now you're kind of predicting the future, but with some degree of, so that's where the truth kind of gets in there, and it mixes stuff up, because you could say to yourself, well, I'm right? I think that's what the people that communicate that way say a lot to themselves. Oh, it's even more than that. It's that I say, hey, I'm sticking my neck out here. I'm trying to help you. Normally, this is how I debrief it, whether with them or on my own. If we were having, I'd say, I'm so confused. I thought I was being helpful, and nobody appreciates it. In fact, they seem to be I have the reverse magnetism for it. Okay, and you're kind of like somebody that you don't like people that break the rules, even if you break the rules, but you probably put a lot of pressure on yourself. So it's a very structured thing, huh? I guess so. I don't know. Can unintended compliments help me with this situation? Well, boredom can. Now, I mean, this is obviously, we're play acting, and not everybody, you're so good at this, Stirs, no one knows that, but I'm not, I'm under hypnosis. I was just trying to show that, don't worry, Stirs is but so that this normally doesn't happen. Sometimes boredom allows things to marinate in a good way. versus non-boredom. So boredom's a bit like becoming disengaged with it. And maybe one powerful boredom tool that we've learned over the years, thanks to Scooter. Now, Scooter usually represents the outside voice right here, but for you, Stirs, you're going to have to achieve this a little bit on your own, which is, it sounds like there's probably a running tape, like we're covering a different couple of these tape loops here. And maybe in a period of boredom, you could actively disengage from that and say, okay, well, you're just going to keep at it about that person in the game and how they're not very good at it, huh? But that's a little bit boring because we know, to give it some more space and be like, oh, well, these are repetitive thoughts. I'm getting bored by them. And you get kind of like a little bit, I don't know. I don't have all the answers, Brad, or Stirs, even as Brad Bradderson. But what I do see is like there's an independence there, right? And now you're used to counting on yourself, a little bit of self-reliance. And you've been put in a position here where you're the one at the head, or you feel like you are. So maybe some of that thing of like, and it's probably because, you possess some of those skills. And I would say that you probably possess a lot of courage, and to be straightforward and honest. It takes courage, except when it doesn't. Do you know what I'm saying, Stirs? I don't know. No, I don't. That's very confusing to me. Okay, so I would say that's a question to ask yourself, especially in these times of boredom. Like, is this direct communication easy for me, or is it taking me some courage and to be honest and straightforward, or is it easy honesty? There's nothing that creates, there's nothing like a tepid compliment. To easy honesty and a tepid compliment go together. Kind of sounds like you're just making stuff up, Brad. No, it doesn't, you're totally correct. So let's go to a meta communication on this. So that took you a little while to say that. We've been talking for a while. Did you have to sit with that? And now that was direct, but it didn't feel harsh. And it felt, so can you tell me more about why you communicated to me that it sounds like I'm just making things up? I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit empty. And I'm feeling like some of the stuff you're saying has points, but they're not going anywhere. And some words are like, feel like they're made up words, or words that you're kind of like hoping to find the meaning to. And I'm finding myself wanting to understand, but being more and more confused the more I listen to you. Okay, that's good. I think there's even some unintended compliments in there. Okay, so you're probably wondering what I mean by easy honesty. Yeah, well, that sounds like a made-up word, or two words just put together. Yeah, well, I don't know if I've ever heard it before, but you seem like a pretty good example of what I would call easy honesty, or honesty with no cost. And what I mean by that is that you, when you're being direct there and you said, why don't you just stop playing that game? You're terrible at it. I think to most people listening, they probably leaned back a little bit. So, whoa, Stirs. But you were finding it very easy. Like if I could walk through some of the steps and you could just redirect me if I'm wrong. We'll use it. This is imaginary, right? No, yeah. I mean, like this has happened before, but not at this particular example is made up. Okay, so in this example, you've watched someone playing AU. Let's just say you've watched them playing it for 2 months in a reasonable amount of time, not all the time. And there's some other timeline coming up, either work-related or personal-related, or you could be playing a different game together. but there's some other internal to external time pressure. Also seems like an internal pressure because you're aware of the external pressure. And your opinion, which seems founded in the truth, is that the person is not getting any better at the game. And maybe even, but you haven't communicated this, or maybe they're not even enjoying themselves, because it doesn't feel like the thing you've done, or maybe you have, you've done like a kind of surface level, whatever, empathy or compassion, or putting yourself in their shoes. But for you, when it's easy for you to be honest, I think that's probably a sign maybe you shouldn't be honest. Maybe, like you say, is this going to take some courage? And if the answer is no, maybe you should stop and marinate and then go through this boredom process to find the unintended compliments. Okay. I still feel like you're making stuff up, but I understand what you're saying, I think. Terrific. I'm glad to have you here at the seminar. Okay, so what I think maybe you would want to do in this situation, and this is the whole intention, I mean, this is why, this is actually scripted and not made up at all, is like some of this stuff does feel like, okay, like let's try to look at some unintended compliments that you're saying that are so unintended that the person you're saying this and being direct with can't even hear them because they're so masked in your simplistic belief of the truth. And I'm not saying that like as an insult. Like, I mean, you're just saying your direct communication of what you believe is the truth. I have to believe as a boredom expert that it's so boring that the wanting to avoid the depths of boredom are not where we're not able to see that the reality is that there's a whole well of unintended compliments there that you're not aware of and they're not aware of, and that by having the courage to discover those and then find a way to communicate some of those, we try to use boredom, I think we've talked about in other seminars, or maybe those were only, are extremely high level paid courses, empathy and compassion through boredom. Okay, I'm hearing what you're saying. So here I am watching this person in my life play this game that they don't seem to be getting better at. So it does create a reaction in me, which you're and yeah, maybe what you're saying is I haven't created space for it. But so what I could say are some unintended compliments. So I've already said the compliments, right? Right. You're nodding, Brad. Wow, you're really persisting at this game, despite the fact you're awful at it. That's an unintended compliment. I mean, it may be hard to hear, so I would just eliminate the second. Wow, you're like, I appreciate the fact that you're doing something. I mean, unless you're just using the game as a tool for escape, and you're also not good at it. Hey, this is Brad here. I really like how you're using your directness, and you're finding out these unintended compliments, and actually, in some sense, you're really staying to the rule book. Yeah, that's a direct compliment, Brad, but I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, thanks. So let's keep going. What else? I just wonder, I noticed you playing this game, wondering if you're enjoying it or not, or how you're feeling at it, because you keep at it, and is this something you're enjoying? Okay, that seems like maybe unintended. I like that. I don't know if that's well, I guess the compliment would be like, hey, you're worthy of my caring, and I care about you, and just curious how you're feeling about this game you keep playing. Right, that you're terrible at. Okay, so that's pretty good. Is there any other unintended compliments you could give? Oh, maybe like something like, and I learned this from you, Brad. Well, hey, I noticed, excuse me, like, do you mind pausing the game for a second? Can we schedule a time to talk? But I noticed, I'm thinking about this timeline for this project or whatever. We got to go to Nana's house or, this access this game, whatever it is, this timeline. And I noticed myself kind of wondering, I don't know, I'm not feeling great about it. I don't know. How are you feeling about the timeline, or how do you feel? You know what I mean? I'm not sure. Like I just want, like, I'm so unsure. I'm not even sure how to communicate it. Okay, that's pretty good. I mean, I would definitely use someone other than a boredom expert to, find a way to communicate that. But I think, from where you're coming from, there is, some nice, I think that's a nice, place to operate from, that you're kind of operating from a place of like, what would the unintended compliment be there, Stirs? Well, I have feelings, and that's okay. And you probably have some feelings, and that's okay. And this time, I have feelings about this timeline, which maybe even the timeline exists, so it needs some sort of compliment. So great job existing timeline, and it feels like it's looming. And I'm not sure. Do you feel like it's looming, or do you feel like, are you thinking about the timeline at all? Okay, that feels like a little intentional, though. But, you could say you're thinking, yeah, no, I guess I'm not an expert, but I'm only expert on the boredom part. Yeah, so I guess that's where I'd leave it. Okay, thank you, Stirs. That was great. So I don't, okay, so now now that I've discussed things with Stirs, maybe I could come up with an idea here, because Scooter said, I originally supposed to be a story seminar. So maybe you're watching the production, this Brad Bradderson here with an untold tale. It was a long, long time ago that there was someone like so once upon a time. Now, like, and Scooter will remember this because he's talked about it on the podcast before. Well, so once upon a time, people, used to paint their insides of their houses and the outsides of their houses. And you could buy paint at different places, but you could buy paint at this was before the stores that carried everything. But I think even in that, no, Scooter was, but so you used to have hardware stores, right, that sold very similar to those giant ones. I think they're called home improvement stores now. And there was also paint stores where you would go and they sold only paint. And I'm guessing those still exist, but at the time, I think, and now I don't understand, this is yet another thing I'm confused about. Were people painting their houses more in the 80s and maybe even the 90s? And were they painting indoors or outdoors? I don't know. Okay, but and here's another question. Was this like a job, like a paintologist? This is a whole world, a world of mystery to Brad Bradderson. A world that was that's so intriguing, and it so sparks my interest that I almost want to know more about it. But I can remember times, so let's just say, now I don't know how this worked because, again, I was only a child within within Scooter. Just pretend Scooter was carrying me around in his pocket, and I'm observing everything. Now, I would already be impressed, that someone, like an adult figure with children or without children, would take these steps and say, okay, something needs to be painted. Okay, I could see that happening in discussion saying, okay, let's get these walls painted, or let's get this outdoor painted, or let's get painting on this thing. I can see all that happening. So I'm aware of that. Now, the next thing they would have to do is say, okay, so let's decide let's start to break this project up into smaller parts. Now that is or maybe they have somehow had a method like that or unlike that worked for them. And I'm watching all this and I'm saying, okay, then at some point during that process, whether it's a short process or a long process, whether it had procrastination or was rushed or was in some sort of middle zone, the time came up to decide on the color of the painting. And I think this still exists, that you could go get paints had different colors and numbers, very similar, like the easiest example we could say is Crayola. But you would get these cards. Now, let's just say you were painting something in a maroon or brick color, and you were deciding between about 5 or 6 tones. They would have a strip of different colors within that, maroon brick, sunset brick, whatever, chocolate maroon, and stuff like that. And it would be on a card. And I think there was even books. But you would take this card and you would take it home and then you'd say, okay, well, what do I think here? Well, this is kind of like I'm feeling like brick dawn or dawn brick, brick of dawn. That would be a pun even. We're feeling like brick of dawn is the color we want. Then you would return to this store. Now, at some point, and I'm not even aware of this, so this is only an assumption, but I think it's a strong assumption to base things on. They would say, wait a second, I'm going to need, I need some sort of calculator to calculate how much paint I'm going to need for this project. And whatever that calculator is, probably provided by the paint companies. Maybe this was a different era, because nowadays you'd say, oh boy, is this calculator actually have my best interests in mind? And that's something I could say, hey, that's a good way to look at it. So, I mean, yeah, that was a delving into the direct compliment. But so then they say, okay, we need about 8 gallons of paint. Paint was sold by the gallon in cans. Now, this is where it gets flashy. Holy cow, does it get good here. Now, you would go to the store. And again, I was only in the pocket of Scooter watching all this. But it did seem very, very exciting. But we weren't a part of the actual, we were only observing. Probably Scooter was somewhat grouchy because he wanted to be watching cartoons or playing with his toys. But you would wait to be, wait at the paint stand or at the paint, so there was a paint mixing thing that would happen. And now this process to me is now shrouded in mystery. At the time, Scooter and I didn't really care. It was something that just happened magically, and what we missed out on was the magic of how it happened. So we don't really know, but so you would present the person with this thing and say, okay, we're looking for a brick of dawn. That's the color we want to paint on. Okay, how many gallons? You need? Whatever gallons. We said 4 gallons. Okay, 4 gallons of brick of dawn. Now, this is, again, a leap in presumptions, so you'll have to excuse me if you're in the paint business. If paint's your game and something's your name, I apologize. But so I would assume, so the paint store did not have unlimited paint, but it had a large number of paint choices. So I guess we could posit that there was some sort of base color and then some sort of mixed color, and there was some sort of a formula that could be followed. And I guess the formula would have to be somewhat precise because you were making more than 1 gallon of paint. But I'm just guessing, so I don't know. Like, and of course you need primer. Of course, Scooter talks about priming your rocks and priming. But we're not talking about primer right now. We're talking about primer. No, I'm just kidding. Just a little AI there. I'm not talking about primer. But so primer. So you would present this person. Like, this is magical science and art coming together. And they would follow some formula. And for me, precision is art because I've been around Scooter so long. And there's Scooter has a lot of quality skills. Precision's just not one of them. His attention is focused elsewhere. And precision's not a skill everyone has. But so they would follow some sort of a consistent formula, probably a precision formula. And and you may have seen these machines. Now, I feel like this is another change in eras, that it is very rare to see those paints. Like, I feel like nowadays there's more space in those stores. So maybe they say, okay, are you looking for a coral or an aqua coral? There's a lot of paint on the walls or paint on the shelves. But in this situation, they would have this machine that would mix the paint, which is interesting because you'd still have to mix it again when you got home and you were ready to paint. But so this machine, they would take the formula, and all of this is presumption based on observation. So I could be totally wrong, but it is impressive. And, the machine would vibrate, and usually I think there was 2 cans to balance it out. I don't know if there was ever a 1-can machine or maybe they were all 1 cans. And it would shake the can with the paint in it, and usually it's quite a scene. Now, it's only engaging for a little while, especially for someone like Scooter, where maybe he would try to find out maybe the one trip to the paint store, he decided to get into trading paint cards and then realized that wasn't interesting. And then, shuffling them like cards against your face or using them like a fan or to make a noisemaker. Once you're done with those things, then you watch it shaking the paint again. And I don't know what that machine was called, paint shaker, paint mixer, but it was very dramatic. And I think in some sense, in a positive way, a sense of showmanship. But I feel like the machines were also always running. And they attracted a lot of attention, as opposed to now when I don't know if I've ever seen the machine in action at all at one of these big stores. And so I'm not sure. Do they, I don't know. Do those machines work anymore? I don't know. But so that would be a whole thing. Then you would take the paint home and they would put the tops back on. Now, you need a few things you needed. You needed paint stirrers, which were usually free. And originally I thought the story was going to be a tale of the paint stirrers, but I didn't realize how deep, if you've been observing this level of boredom and unintended compliments could be just by observing some moments. But so you'd get paint stirrers that had the name of the paint store or the paint company. I want to say Dinty Moore, but I think that makes stew like Russell West. No, Bodie's a basketball player, but like it would say something like that on there. If Russell Westbrook owned a paint store, it'd be Westbrook Paints or something. Or Bodie and Westbrook Paints, I don't know. And it may have the address or it may be from the corporate office. And so you'd take paint stirrers, you would need a paint can opener, which is a special tool, though you could use some sort of other tool. Then you needed painting devices and drop cloths like that. But we're only focusing on the paint itself. And the paint can opener looked a bit like a can opener from my memory. And you probably could have used a can opener, but it did have a specific type of lip. And the paint cans, that would be, some paint cans had a plastic handle on them, but over the metal handle. And paint cans need to be carried. And obviously, you better hope that was, like, probably they had a rubber mallet at the store to put the lids of the cans on there, which would be good thinking. You don't want to dent the can. But you definitely need that paint can on there, because if it's not on there, that's not going to be good, right? It's going to be an issue. So then you would take the paint home. So again, this is all happening on someone's free time that has a full-time job or is a full-time parent. So my mind is even blown by that, and how our world has changed. And I'm not saying for the better or the worse. I'm just saying, wow, things have changed. Or at least for me and Scooter. I mean, Scooter's never owned a property. And he's never kind of seen the need to paint his own apartments on the inside. But I don't know if he would, like, or he'd say, okay, let's get to this. And I guess it just depends on what, what you want, what you're into anyway. Because Scooter does know some people, renters that have painted their apartments. So then so just thinking about all these steps is wonderful. Then you would need to mix the paint, and you would use the stir, so the paint mixing happened at the store, then paint stirring. So before you would paint, you would need to stir it, and you'd stir it up. You'd take the paint stir, you'd put it in there. And then obviously it was difficult at first because the paint could be pretty close to the lid, but different paints would separate. I don't know what paint's made of, to be honest with you. But it seemed like it had some oil and other things, and so you'd mix it up, and you'd keep mixing it till it's properly mixed. And you could notice sometimes that there was thicker goop on the bottom, depending on how long the paint had sat for. And that was an important job. And then the paint stirrer, the paint stirrers were made out of a wood, like a balsa type wood. And those were cool things. I'm sure they were good for, again, for kids to play with, like similar to like a garden stake or something. You might be able to repurpose it for that. Or, use it as kindling if you were having a little, if you had a fireplace or something. But yeah, you would stir the paint, and then the whole painting process would go on. There's paint rollers, and then there was paint brushes. Now, back in these days, I don't even think there occasionally you'd see someone with a paint sprayer, and I think maybe there was one or two of them on, what do they call those, infomercials about paint sprayers. Maybe even Ron Popeil sold one. I don't know. Ron Popeil used to be the head of the infomercial. But for a lot of people, you just had to paint with your hand, like with a roller. And you had to get the right amount of paint on. So you could see why painters are well compensated for painting homes indoors and outdoors, because you want them to do a good job. Now, Scooter was doing it, and a lot of times I would notice they either had too little or too much paint on the roller. If you have too much on, it's going to leave a couple things, but you could probably spread it around. And if you didn't have enough, then it was it wasn't going to, then you just didn't have enough paint. So that's how this is actually active use of unintended compliments. Was that the original, seminar? We got to work with one of our clients here. That was, maybe we'll call it the unintended compliment coaching program, and then see how it works in the real world. But really, I mean, Scooter will make me give the caveat that it's just like being in the moment and being observational and grateful for being able to be in the moment. I'm grateful that Scooter's memory is such that we could go back to a time And he kind of remembers stuff, but the stuff we remember is impressive. And our being impressed means that there could be compliments without intention behind them. That some might say, you're just misusing the word, it's appreciation. And I say, okay, well, but this is also helping people get some rest. That's the most important thing. From your friend, Brad Bradderson, and all our friends at the Boredom Institute. Good night, everybody. All right, I just want to thank everybody who gave me feedback recently using that feedback form. I want to thank Katie, Bree, and Ryan. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Marissa, Jason, and Zane. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Rufus, Izzard, and Yoka. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Cheryl, Susie, and Tom. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Leanne, Liz, and Allie. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. SG, Pepper, and Kaylee. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Ren, Katie, and Nesh. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Michelle, Archer, and Christy. Thanks, and good night. Moira, Bryn, and Kirsty. Thanks, and good night. Patrick, Audrey, and Meg. Thanks, and good night. Thanks, everybody, for supporting the show. Let me know, that you're not in a position to support the show or why you wouldn't support the show. It means a lot. Like, honestly, taking that action is a huge way to help me kind of find direction. So I really, really do appreciate it. And I couldn't do it without all you. Free way to support the show, in addition to supporting it directly, spread the word about the podcast. So thanks so much and good night. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots, and this is a tuck you in message. I don't know if you've been listening to episode after episode or you just woke up, you're drifting in and out, but this is also a reminder the show is always here for you, as it has been since 2013. But I need to talk, just you and me. We got to talk for a minute if you're listening to me and hearing me right now. And you might have heard me talking about this before, but I do want to spell this out, that Sleep With Me, all of the funding to make Sleep With Me, everything that pays all of our bills and the costs of producing the show, 99% of that comes from listeners. We don't get any funding from outside sources or other entertainment companies or companies like music streaming companies or video streaming companies. We don't have any investors. And there's no other secret pipeline of support for Sleep With Me or almost every other podcast either. We get some money from sponsors that are direct response, meaning they base their sponsorship on the listeners that support them. A tiny bit from automated ads. But the majority of what keeps the show going comes from the people who get the most out of the podcast. Super listeners, ideally. And I don't know if you're a super listener. I don't know if you already made the decision you're not in a position to support the show. That's okay. Or you made the decision you're not going to support the show. That's okay, too. You could still take a part in this coming right up here. But if you didn't make one of those two decisions, we need support. Support from the people who benefit the most from the podcast. People that fall asleep fast. People that listen all night long. If we don't get more all-night listeners and people who fall asleep fast, the podcast won't be around. We also need support from people that listen 3-4 nights a week, people who have listened for a year or longer. And I'm just wondering if you're in one of those groups. The podcast has changed your life for the better, and it continues to change your life for the better. And I'm trying to lay out the stakes without using kind of fear or stress, because while that is effective, right? The last round this month, I tried to use a more positive message, and we actually lost subscribers. But it's so tiring for me. It's almost like I'd rather lose the podcast than kind of keep having to do this sales pitch and say, well, if the podcast is going to go away, if that's the only way to get people to support the show, I don't know, it's really, really not fun for me. So instead of, the stakes are there. If you haven't decided and the podcast has changed your life for the better, the stakes are, we need some of you, maybe it's you, to support the show, or it won't be around. But instead of focusing on that, I want to talk about rooting, about sending positive energy, rooting in the deep dark night. I've been talking about this in the intro for years. And that's what I believe in. I believe in rooting for other people to get a good night's sleep. And maybe you're here, maybe you stuck around because someone out there, somebody who was struggling in the deep dark night just like you, was rooting for you. And you could feel that welcome when you got here. Or maybe you're one of those people who roots for other people who are struggling in the deep dark night. And here's what a couple people who did sign up in the last round of messaging said. Tiffany Y said, just because you can get something for free doesn't mean you should. I know if I have trouble for sleeping, I just have to listen. I'll be out in no time. That is definitely worth a few dollars a month. And Michelle F. said, this show is like cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia and a sleep aid all in one. I also consider it an art form, and I believe in compensating artists for their work. Timothy T. said, I'm a full-time caregiver, and the person I care for discovered your podcast, and we really like the ad-free content. It makes it easier to listen to. And then John R., who said, I'm a super listener, said, I had no idea how urgent it was. I'd been meaning to support the show, but I just never took the time. I realize now I've been unintentionally voting now. So I subscribed and with feeling. So what I'm asking is, are you the one person everybody else is rooting for? Like, just to overcome whatever it is, putting it off or saying it doesn't matter, it matters, or somebody else is going to do it? Or are you the person we're rooting for to support the show? Now, it's okay if you're not. Maybe you're rooting for yourself to get a good night's sleep as soon as this episode, maybe you're an all-night listener. Maybe you woke up and you're looking forward to falling asleep soon. If you are a super listener, we did build Sleep With Me Plus with you in mind. Ad-free episodes, ad-free story-only episodes, tons of different cool stuff. So I don't know if you're rooting for yourself, think about supporting the show on Sleep With Me Plus just so you get a better listening experience. But maybe you're rooting for somebody else out there. Maybe it's somebody this month, which we're rooting for is people going back to school or who are impacted by the back-to-school season. It could be teachers, it could be parents, it could be students, it could be anybody dealing with increased traffic. Whatever it is, this beginning of this transitional season affects a lot of people, and we're rooting for all those people, whether they listen to the show or not, or whether they're a super listener or a cat. They say, well, I just needed to get through the first couple weeks of school. We're rooting for all of them to get a good night's sleep. So you could root for those people. You could root for someone whose sleep struggles are just like yours, or you could receive the rooting, because I hope you can feel it right now. I'm rooting for you, but a bunch of other people are rooting for you right now across the world. But if you're the one we're rooting for that's like, yeah, I've been putting it off. Yes, Sleep With Me continues to change my life for the better. We're rooting for you to support the show. So they'll be around, not just for you, for every other person we're rooting for. You could do that at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus, because we need support, right? And you might be thinking someone else will do it. But what if, as has been said in the last couple months, time after time, what if that someone else is you, right? You're the someone else. Well, if you're that person, we're cheering you on here. Don't let that resistance, and I know what the resistance feels like. I put it off. I say it doesn't matter. I say I'll do it tomorrow. Then I criticize myself. But just do it and see how it feels. And again, you could always cancel during the free trial or cancel after a month or two. But I'm so proud of the show. And this is how I want to try to get support for the show. If it doesn't work, I don't know what I'll do. But I'm going to keep trying this more positive but honest message where everybody can participate. And everybody can participate in giving and receiving. But it is like kind of like a needle in a haystack that we're looking for now, but we got to find it. So I don't know if you're the needle in the haystack or you're somebody snoozing in the haystack, or maybe you're a horse having a hay snack. I don't know. But thanks so much for listening, and good night.